Durban-based author Thabile Shange has recently graced bookshelves around the country with her debut novel titled In the Midst of It All. The book follows the romantic affairs of Thandi, Nxumalo and Femi Adewoye as they try to navigate the dynamics of their tumultuous unionship. The book also addresses the issue of xenophobia as we follow Femi's recollection and recounting of the emotional ordeal he experiences as the country, went through a spat of xenophobic attacks. To piece all this together and take us through how she managed to tell this story through this book, Thabile Shange joins us now via Zoom. Thabile, very good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now tell us more about this story that you say has been in your heart for a very long time. What inspired it?
I wasn't happy with the stereotypes attached to non-Nigerian women, South African women especially, who are in relationships with Nigerian men. So I wrote this book to get rid of these stereotypes, and as someone who's been in that kind of relationship before, I wrote a book that I always wanted to read, and I wanted to be represented correctly.
And the book centers around the character of Nxumalo. Just unpack for us this character and her journey in this book.
Well, Nxumalo is, I would describe her as a woman that I've always wanted to be. I admire her bravery, her resilience, and her fight and her fiery spirit. So in the book, we see how she first meets Femi, who's a passionate mechanic, and their relationship. We see how she stands up for Femi in the midst of everything that is happening, and how we see how she stands up to him when he's disrespected, because Femi is a laid-back guy. So Femi is, Nandi is more of outspoken type of person. So we see how she sometimes stands up for him, even though he sometimes gets annoyed with her.
Yeah.
So she's a character that I aspire to be. I admire her bravery and her overall character. It's someone that I think that we should all look up to.
Okay. Now talk to us about some of the key people that played key roles in Nandi's character and story development, such as her dad, Nxumalo, and of course her love interest to Femi.
Well, her dad, we see how he disapproves of the relationship as soon as he finds out about it. His disapproval stems from his hatred for Nigerian men who he believes are responsible for his only son's death. So we see how his disapproval somehow kind of puts a strain in Nandi and Femi's relationship. But Nandi refuses to give up, so yeah.
Now take us back to that first encounter between Nandi and Femi and, the first impressions they had about one another.
Well, we see how we see the first encounter from Nandi's point of view, because the book is told from Femi and Nandi's point of view.
Yes.
So when we first get introduced to the character, we see everything unfold from Nandi's perspective. We see how she when she meets Femi for the first time, we see how uneasy she is, because she has these ideas about Nigerian men that those ideas play a role in how their meeting unfolds, because she first meets him when she does an assignment for her school assignments. Okay. So we see how uneasy she is.
Yeah. And I see that one of the key themes in this book is xenophobia. I mean, this comes through as we come across Nandi's father's prejudice towards foreign nationals. Speak to us more about this and the other events that occur in the book with regards to this theme.
Well, we see how Nandi's father, Nxumalo, he resents Femi even without meeting him, because he believes that all Nigerians are bad. He believes that they are all drug dealers and they're into criminal activities. So we see how his perspective on Nigerian men play a role in Nandi and Femi's relationship, how much they struggle because of his disapproval.
And I think
it's not only it's not only him. We see how other people view Nandi's relationship. So they also have those kind of ideas about Nigerian men.
And I think one of the underlying themes in this book is that love conquers all, right? And we see this in Nandi and Femi's love journey in the book. Tell us more about why this was so important for you to highlight.
One of the main things I wanted people to take away from this book is, of course, that love conquers all, and that love has no love has no boundaries.
Yes.
You know, sometimes people don't have a choice in who to fall on who they fall in love with. So I wanted people to remember that, so they can, get rid of the stereotypes that they put on these types of relationships.
And this being your first novel, just take us through your writing process.
Well, I started the book in 2018.
Yeah.
And I was a few chapters in. So in 2018, I wrote it. It was a very rough draft. And then I kind of left it and wrote another story. It's a short story called The Morning After. So I kind of let In the Midst of It All aside and focused on my short story titled The Morning After, which was released in 2018. So it was in 2020, during the lockdown period, where I sort of went back to In the Midst of It All and continued. And for me, the lockdown was a blessing in disguise, so because I got to finish the book. And, so I completed it this year and published it. So the writing process, it had its ups and downs, the procrastinations and all things like that. But, I'm glad that I managed to finish it this year.
Thabile, earlier on you said that you were once in the relationship that is, that's similar to Nandi and Femi's relationship. So how much of yourself is reflected through Nandi's character?
Well, I would say we are the opposites. Nandi is more outspoken and introvert. And a lot of people actually have asked me how much I relate to the story. And the truth is, I don't relate much to the story. Because even the characters there are not based on people that I know in real life. So yeah, everything is fictional, basically, because I get that question a lot. So I do relate on some of the parts a little bit, but most of the stuff is completely fictional.
So would you say that having written this book was triggered or inspired by your own relationship?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. All right. Thabile, lovely chatting to you. Great book this is. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that was our Sunday morning guest author, Thabile Shange, and we've been discussing her latest book titled In the Midst of It All.